What's up guys, OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the launch lineup for the Nintendo Switch 2 and building the perfect launch lineup. Now, launch lineups are something that are almost unpredictable because you don't know exactly when third-party games are going to be available. There's not going to be too many first-party games available. It's hard to really piece together before we've even seen more of the games that are coming to see what's going to be at the launch of a system. But I do want to go over where I feel they can build the best Nintendo Switch 2 launch lineup and kind of have it as, I would say, somewhere in between what they did with the Nintendo Wii U and the Nintendo Switch, because there are takeaways from both of those launches that went really well and some that could be improved upon. But before we get into all of that, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, and click that notification bell because we're going to be dropping so much Nintendo Switch 2 content. It's going to be a ton of fun in addition to our live streams and so much more. The community is fantastic. Now let's go ahead and jump right into this. Now we first have to start out with the backwards compatibility angle just to kind of get that out of the way. Nintendo has already confirmed that there will be full physical and digital backwards compatibility. So obviously you have an instant library as soon as you buy a Nintendo Switch 2. Pretty much every single Nintendo Switch 1 game will work. There are some games that probably won't work, like Nintendo Labo, where you have to put the Nintendo Switch into like a device. Obviously the Nintendo Switch 2 is bigger than the Nintendo Switch 1, so it won't fit. There might be some compatibility issues with the IR, which the Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Con might not have that. So there are going to be a few games that probably won't take advantage of the backwards compatibility features, but essentially everything is going to work. So having an instant library is definitely good. However, I do think that Nintendo would be wise, and it's very possible based off of some of the rumors and stuff that we've gotten out there, that there will be a slew of Nintendo Switch 1 enhanced games for Nintendo Switch 2, and those could be at launch. I think it would be pretty cool if Nintendo had some select games that they decided to enhance and just release as a patch saying, hey, if you have a Nintendo Switch 2, you can experience this game in DLSS 4K 60 frames per second or something like that. So The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, and maybe even The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, just a number of Zelda games, core type of titles, maybe even Xenoblade Chronicles 1, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Games like that I think would absolutely be great to have right then and there. Now, obviously, they're probably not going to do a bunch of stuff, and it's probably going to be maybe just a select big games that maybe later down the line we'll get more details on what will be enhanced, stuff that's just naturally running better because of the stronger hardware, uncapped frame rates, and all of that. But I do think that it would be cool, and I think it'd be a good idea, especially if you're looking to go more of a light first-party lineup for the launch of the system, to have some stuff already ready to go. Backwards compatibility gives you an instant first party lineup, instant first party upgrades, and of course just great games for people to jump into if they never purchased the Nintendo Switch 1, and you get all of those nice upgrades and everything. So I would expect there to be something like that. Now, once again, it might not be all the titles that I listed, but I do feel that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom could be very good candidates for that. Now let's build out some of the other stuff that you need to have. Now we know for a fact that there's going to be a brand new Nintendo Switch 2 Mario Kart. There's been analysis on this, and this is a ground up brand new Mario Kart game for the Nintendo Switch 2 that's going to take advantage of the system. Well, how do we know this? Well, simply because they have increased the racer count from 12 to 24. That puts double the strain in terms of what you need to do on the hardware. With 12 people racing compared to 24 people racing, that's a lot more. If you're looking at items, you're looking at the levels, the track design, the item balance, everything needs to be completely recalibrated for 24 people. You need to adjust everything. That's how I know this game is built for the ground up. It's going to have brand new gimmicks, and it does seem like there's going to be some type of wonder seed that we saw in the trailer as well. So this game is going to have a completely different tone and vibe than what we saw with previous Mario Kart games. Some are even dubbing this to be maybe the Super Mario Bros. Wonder of the Mario Kart series, where after a while we've been getting kind of the similar concept of what you'd expect from a Mario Kart game, but this one really takes that, makes it super weird, and changes a lot of the rules that we knew beforehand. And I think that with 24 racers, essentially you have to do that because you cannot play by the same rules. Otherwise, it's just going to be a slugfest of red shells and shells all over the place and blue shells and all sorts of nonsense. It's not going to be a game that's going to be balanced well or fun if you play by the old rules of Mario Kart games, because all of them have had more of a limited spots when it comes to racing. So at 24, that's going to bring a lot of new gimmicks and different things. So I'm very excited to see that. That is the big centerpiece, probably launch title. Whenever Nintendo shows something first when it comes to a system, like for example, the Nintendo Switch 1, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, they showed that first. Obviously, that was a launch title. You look at Metroid Dread, they showed that for the Nintendo Switch OLED. That was also a launch title for the Nintendo Switch OLED. So I'm very much expecting Mario Kart to be a big and centerpiece launch title and sell essentially throughout the whole life of the Nintendo Switch 2, pushing a lot of units. There's going to be so many people excited and ready to get their hands on the next new Mario Kart game. But outside of Mario Kart, what else could Nintendo have? Well, Nintendo did something that was very interesting with the Nintendo Switch 1, is that they had an experimental game that took advantage of the different aspects of the Nintendo Switch Joy-Con, and to varying degrees of success. Obviously, 1-2 Switch is not an incredible game or anything, but it did show people, hey, this is what the Joy-Con can do. We have these different functionalities in there, and it actually sold decently just because there wasn't a lot of other games, and people were curious about the functionalities of the Joy-Con controller, and they wanted a party game to play with family and friends or kids and all that. So it made sense, and it ended up selling, like I said, really well. I do think that Nintendo could have another experimental Joy-Con 2 type of game that uses the different functionalities that have not been revealed yet for the Nintendo Switch Joy-Con 2. For example, the mouse functionality of it. Maybe there's other types of HD Rumble 2, different types of motions or sensing that it can do compared to the Nintendo Switch Joy-Con 1. So I would see something like Warioware or some type of mini game collection they can put together that takes advantage of the new Joy-Cons, or any even types of styles or gameplay that they have not revealed that the Nintendo Switch 2 does. Now, yes, Nintendo is playing it more safe with the Nintendo Switch 1 to Nintendo Switch 2. But that doesn't mean they don't have some tricks up their sleeve for the system or for the Joy-Cons as well. So very excited to see exactly what's going to happen there. And I would expect there to be some type of mini game collection for the Nintendo Switch 2 that does take advantage of that. Maybe, like I said, Warioware. Now, next up, when it comes down to it, we can discuss third-party games, because that's going to be something that I would feel, if you look at what the Wii U did and you look at what the Nintendo Switch did, Wii U had an abundance of big third-party games that people didn't buy at all, and it was just kind of like, hey, we already have these on 360, the Wii U isn't as an appealing of a system, what's the benefit of having a tethered Wii U controller, like I can't take that anywhere. There was a lot of issues in terms of some of the performance with some of them. There was just all sorts of stuff, so there was a plethora of reasons why that those games didn't do well. So I think that Nintendo's going to go a little bit more of a balance, because the Nintendo Switch 1 launch lineup, it did not have really any major big third-party games overall, and it wasn't until much later they kind of cleared out the slate and let Nintendo do the thing first, and then those big third-party games came in later. So I do think that there's going to be a bit more balance here. I'm not expecting third parties to throw the whole thing at Nintendo right then and there. I don't think that's a good idea, because people aren't going to have as much money to buy everything, and there's going to be a little bit more of a limited install base to buy the games. I do think that you have to sprinkle them in throughout the year, but here's what I think could be available at the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2. And once again, this is probably all going to be completely different, because I have no idea what they're going to do or what other games are going to come, but I do feel something like Persona 3 Reload that gives you a nice remade RPG that's going to be lengthy, and it's different enough from some of the other games that Nintendo does to have right there at launch. Plus, it's been done for a while, it's been rumored for a while, so I do feel that Persona 3 Reload could be a really cool game to have right then and there for the Persona fans, RPG fans in Japan. Like, people have been waiting for like that true blue portable version of Persona 3 to be able to play, and I think that that could be a very good seller, not only in Japan but worldwide, for people to play right off the back on the Nintendo Switch 2. You're already going to have all the other Persona games via backwards compatibility, so maybe there's patches, so I think that'd be really cool to have right there on the Nintendo Switch 2 at launch, and it's definitely possible. Now, next up that I would say for a possible launch title would be Tekken 8. That's something that's also been rumored as well. That gives you a core fighting game for people who do love fighting games, to have something to play on the Nintendo Switch 2, portable fighting as well. If you're out and about, you can play the game. In addition to that, there's history with Tekken and Nintendo launching systems. Tekken on the Nintendo 3DS, that was near launch title or in that first year. In addition to the Wii U, with Tekken Tag Tournament 2 being a launch title for the Nintendo Wii U. So maybe after skipping the Nintendo Switch completely with Tekken, they come back with Tekken 8, because I do think that they probably lost some money out not bringing Tekken to the Nintendo Switch. So Tekken 8 definitely possible for a launch title for the Nintendo Switch 2. Next up would be a old school throwback and something that was rumored for quite some time on the Nintendo Switch 1, and that is Ridge Racer.
It's Ridge Racer. Ridge Racer. Remember that one?
Now, I might be a little bit biased because I listen to Ridge Racer music all the time on my streams. And by the way, just like as a side note, Ridge Racer has some of the best music of all time. The music in that game is so good and people don't talk about it because it's not necessarily a relevant franchise anymore. But I do think that it's possible that they bring back Ridge Racer to have a racing, big racing style of game on the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, how they bring Ridge Racer back, is it that canceled game or that game that we thought that Doc Trey was reporting on all the time when it comes to Ridge Racer? Maybe. Or maybe they take something from before and enhance it and add some new content to it and say, hey, here's this Ridge Racer Deluxe edition of something. So it's very possible that that can be a big racing game to have. Plus, there's also history. The Nintendo DS, I think Ridge Racer was one of the early titles as well. So maybe they do that when it comes to Nintendo Switch having a Ridge Racer title. Now, next up is another game that people have been wanting as well, but I'm not so sure. But I do think that it's intriguing, and that is Elden Ring. This has been a rumored title for the Nintendo Switch 2 as well. And once again, this kind of suits a different style of audience. You get the people who do love the Souls games, those one-man army type of titles, although you can play online with your friends as well. But those kind of different type of hardcore games that people just love to play, gives you value, gives you a lot of content, gives you all sorts of stuff when you get a game like Elden Ring. That's very good for launch. Elden Ring is a 2022 game, so we're going on 3 years of Elden Ring. Obviously, Shadow of the Erdtree came out last year, so if they can do a complete edition for the Nintendo Switch 2, that would be great. And once again, huge opportunity in Japan to reinvigorate sales. These game sales have already been spectacular. There's plenty of money to get a Nintendo Switch port done with a port studio that can handle it. We only got one Souls game from Software on the Nintendo Switch 1 with Dark Souls Remastered. There was rumors of Dark Souls 2 and 3 that never came into fruition. So hopefully we can get Elden Ring on the Nintendo Switch 2 and then the new Elden Ring game that's coming out later as well. But a good start to kind of get people back into it when it comes to the Nintendo base, and having a portable version of Elden Ring, I think it would work really well. It also runs on the PlayStation 4, runs pretty good if you run it backwards compatibility on the PlayStation 5, so I don't think that would be a problem getting the game running on the Nintendo Switch and looking good as well. So Elden Ring, definitely a shot at being a good launch title for the Nintendo Switch 2. Next up, let's talk about some Ubisoft action here. The Division 2, or the Division franchise, maybe a complete edition with both games, with all the different DLC, is absolutely a possibility as well. We did have Nate the Hate come out and state that, yeah, there's going to be more than a half dozen Ubisoft games come over. There's been some other rumors about what those games could be, with stuff like Assassin's Creed Mirage, Assassin's Creed Shadows, The Division, Rainbow Six Siege, Rayman, Mario plus Rabbids, Prince of Persia. There's a lot of stuff that they could bring over, but some of those games are rumored to be later down the line. They're not going to be launch titles. So a game like Assassin's Creed Shadows, for example, that's not going to be a launch title. They need a bit more time to kind of make sure that everything's going good on the Nintendo Switch 2. So maybe Assassin's Creed Mirage is a launch title. Maybe they have upgrades or updates for Prince of Persia. That could also be a thing. Rayman Legends, that could also be a game as well. But once again, those would be maybe more of upgrades since those are on Nintendo Switch 1. So Assassin's Creed Mirage and maybe Tom Clancy The Division 1 and 2 kind of all put together, or even just The Division 2, and just kind of put everything together that you've done when it comes to DLC and content and have all that. And I think that would also be very compelling. Now, the next game that we're going to talk about here is Gotham Knights. That was a game that was rated for the Nintendo Switch 1, it seems, but maybe got ported over to the Nintendo Switch 2 for better performance, or maybe because obviously it's the new system, you can take advantage of what they're doing there. So that's absolutely possible. Warner Bros. Did support the Nintendo Wii U at launch with Batman Arkham City, like an armored edition that was better. So maybe they do Gotham Knights, an armored edition there, and add in some extra content for the Nintendo Switch fans out there. And we also have to look at the sports games and all that. Not going to spend too much time on that, but NBA 2K, potentially having EA there, finally with Madden and college football, those are all possible as well. I think FIFA's going to be there too, because FIFA's always everywhere. Even like the Wii U, they had FIFA, I think even on the Nintendo 3DS at one point, they had FIFA just everywhere. It's on the Nintendo Switch. They're always going to have FIFA, even if it's not going to be the best version of it. But my hope is that they actually have some of the other bigger games that they have. Something like college football, that would be great. Bringing over Madden, despite Madden not being that great anymore, but bringing over that would be good. So I do think that there will be at least somewhat of a slew of sports titles as well for the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2. And of course, you can't forget the indie games. Indie developers are already stating that they're going to be bringing over their games to the Nintendo Switch 2 as well. So I would expect there to be a number of indie games as well. With the Nintendo Switch 1, there were a number of indie games from Shovel Knight, Treasure Trove, Spectre of Torment, Fast RMX. They had that thing that there was that Snipper Clips game that was done in collaboration with Nintendo, Human Resource Machine, Little Inferno, just lots of stuff that I do think that, yeah, there's definitely going to be indie games on the Nintendo Switch 2 right there at launch, in addition to the backwards compatibility that you already have. So there's definitely more games and titles that Nintendo will have potentially for the launch of it. I'm not saying that there's not going to be one game or another or other first-party games, because I didn't list it here. I was just talking about building out a good launch lineup for the Nintendo Switch 2, but really the main focus is going to be like the Mario Kart game. Having that to sell the system, then all of the other stuff will fall into play. But we'll know April 2nd, 2025. That's when the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct is happening, and the launch lineup will probably be detailed there, in addition to pre-orders, all of the system features, and more. We'll get so many more details on the system then, so we'll find out by there. But I just wanted to kind of have a little bit of fun building out a Nintendo Switch 2 launch lineup. But what do you guys think overall about this, and what would be your ideal launch lineup for the Nintendo Switch 2? Let me know in the comment section below. All right guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG videos and more right here on screen. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.